Hey everyone, welcome back to Real Talk with Jody. Today, I want to start by telling you about a lawnmower. I know, stay with me. I had just found myself on my own after 33 years. The life I had built, the routines, the roles, the person I thought I was inside all of it was gone. And I was standing in the middle of what was supposed to be my life, and I had no idea what to do next. Not in a big picture way. I mean, I literally did not know what to do next. Like, what do I do today? What do I handle? Who handles this now? Everything felt like a question I didn't have the answer to. The finances, the house, the decisions that used to just get made somehow because there were two of you and life had a rhythm. And now there was just me standing in a house that suddenly felt very loud and very quiet at the same time. And one day the grass needed to be cut. That's it. That was the crisis. The grass needed cutting. And I stood in my backyard and I looked at that lawnmower and I thought, I don't know how to use this. I had lived in this house for over 10 years. I have raised children in this house. I have run businesses. I have managed 1,000 things. And I don't know how to start this machine. So I called my girlfriend and I asked her husband to come over and show me how to use my own lawnmower. And he came and he showed me and I cut the grass. But here's what I want you to understand about that moment. It wasn't really about the lawnmower. It was never about the lawnmower. It was about the fact that I was frozen, completely, totally frozen. Because for 33 years, decisions had a system. There was a person to check with, a rhythm to follow, a structure that told me what came next. And now that was gone. And I didn't know how to move without it. I was waiting for permission. I didn't know that's what it was at the time. I just knew I couldn't move. I couldn't make a decision. I couldn't figure out what I was supposed to do or who was supposed to tell me. I just stood there in my yard looking at my lawnmower. And somewhere in there, I don't know if it was that day or a few days later, something shifted. I looked at my life and I realized no one is coming. No one is riding in to save me. No one is going to show up and hand me a plan and tell me what to do next and make all of this okay. That's not how this works. That's not how any of this works. And I had a choice. I could keep standing there frozen, waiting for something that wasn't coming, or I could go into survivor mode. And I chose survivor mode. I have 2 sons, and the first thing I said to myself, the very first decision I made was this, that my boys will never feel sorry for me. Not because I didn't need help, not because I wasn't scared, but because I knew. I knew in my gut that the moment I let my kids carry my weight, I'd be trading my healing for their worry. And I wasn't willing to do that to them. So I couldn't lean on them. I couldn't wait for them to save me. I had to figure out how to save myself. And that meant I had to learn to give myself permission. Permission to figure things out. Permission to make mistakes. Permission to not know how to use a lawnmower and to call a friend and learn. Permission to be a beginner at my own life at 50 years old. That's what this episode is about, because I know I'm not the only one who stood in the backyard looking at something that should be simple, completely frozen. Not because the task was too hard, but because there was no one left to say, go ahead. If that's you, today's episode is for you. And we're going to talk about the permission problem. Here's what I want you to think about. Before you were starting over, before whatever it was that changed your life, who was giving you permission? For a lot of women, it was a husband or a partner. Maybe it was a parent whose voice never left your head. Maybe it was a job title or a role, a wife, mom, caretaker, that told you every day what you were supposed to be doing. And then that thing went away, and now there's no one handing you the permission slip. And somehow, instead of feeling free, you feel stuck. That doesn't make us broken. That makes you human. Most of us were never taught to give ourselves permission. We were taught to earn it, to wait for it, to be grateful when we got it. And when the source of it disappears, we don't know automatically how to generate it ourselves. We just wait. I want you to think about when it started for you, because I promise you, this isn't new. You've been seeking permission for a long time. The starting over just made it impossible to ignore. Here's something I've seen over and over, and something I live myself. It doesn't happen all at once. No one wakes up one morning and thinks, I've lost myself. It's gradual. It's quiet. And by the time you notice, it's been going on for years. In a long marriage or partnership, especially one where you were the one doing most of the caretaking, the house, the kids, the emotional labor of keeping everyone okay. You get really, really good at putting yourself last. Not because you're weak, because you loved your family, because that's what you were taught a good wife and mother does. And here's what nobody tells you. Every time you silence your own preference to keep the peace, every time you say whatever you want when you actually had an opinion, every time you shrink your own needs so someone else doesn't have to be inconvenienced, you're practicing self-erasure. You're training yourself out of your own voice. And the scary part, you don't even realize you're doing it because it feels like love. It feels like selflessness. It feels like being a good person. I've trained over 22,000 women at my range, and the ones who come in after divorce or loss, I can spot them immediately. Not because they look sad, because they didn't know how to make a decision about themselves. Something as simple as, what type of gun do you think you might want to try? Would make them freeze. They'd look around the room. They were waiting for someone to tell them the answer. They weren't weak. They were out of practice. They had spent so many years deferring that the muscle for self-direction had basically gone dormant. And here's the part that really matters. When the marriage ended, they didn't just lose a partner. They lost the structure that had been making decisions for them. The structure they'd quietly handed that power to, piece by piece, over years and decades. So when it was gone, they didn't just feel alone. They felt unqualified to run their own lives. Does that resonate? Because if it does, I want you to hear this clearly. You were not unqualified. You were undertrained, and that is a completely different problem. One that is absolutely fixable. Permission seeking doesn't always look like permission seeking. It wears a lot of different outfits. So let me describe some of them, and you tell me if any sound familiar. Overthinking. You make a decision, then you unmake it, then you make it again. You research it to death. You can't pull the trigger because some part of you is hoping if you gather enough information, someone will eventually say, yes, that's the right call. You poll everyone. You ask everyone, your sister, your best friend, your kids, your neighbor, not because you want their opinion, but because you're hoping someone gives you the green light. You wait to feel ready. Ready is a myth, by the way. I'll say that louder for the people in the back. You are never going to feel ready. Ready is something your brain invented to protect you from change. You use guilt as a gatekeeper. You know what you want to do. You might even know it's the right thing, but you feel guilty about it, guilty for wanting something different, for moving forward, for not being sad enough or sad too long. And so you wait until the guilt passes. It won't. You have to move anyway. And shrinking the ask. Instead of doing the thing you actually want to do, you do a tiny, cautious version of it. So you don't have to justify the full thing to anyone, including yourself. Sound like anyone you know? Yeah, me too, for years. So let me explain what's actually happening when you freeze. Because I spent a long time thinking it meant something was wrong with me. And I've watched thousands of women think the same thing about themselves. And I want to clear that up. Your brain has one primary job, not to make you happy, not to help you grow. Its primary job is to keep you safe. And the way it does that is by making the known feel uncomfortable and the unknown feel dangerous. When you've been in a long marriage or partnership, your brain has been running the same operating system for years. It knows the routines. It knows the roles. It knows what to expect. And even if parts of that life weren't great, even if you were unhappy, even if you knew it needed to end, your brain had categorized it as known, and known is safe. When that structure disappears, your brain does not automatically update. It goes into threat response. It starts scanning for danger. And the way that shows up emotionally is anxiety, paralysis, and an overwhelming urge to do nothing until someone tells you it's okay to move. That's not weakness. That's biology. That's your brain doing exactly what it was designed to do. But here's the problem. Your brain can't tell the difference between danger that will hurt you and discomfort that will grow you. It treats both the same. So it will try to keep you from doing the hard, uncomfortable, necessary thing just as hard as it would try to keep you from walking into traffic. I see this play out every single week at my range. Women walk in to take a class. Some of them are shaking. Not because a gun is inherently terrifying, but because they had never done something like this for themselves. They had never walked into a room and said, I am here because I choose to be here, because I decided I was worth protecting. That's a massive act of self-permission, and their nervous system was responding accordingly. What I learned to tell them and what I want to tell you now is this. The shaking doesn't mean to stop. The shaking means you're doing something that matters. The shaking means you're at the edge of who you used to be and you're about to step past it. The freeze is not a stop sign. It's a signal that change is close. There's something about starting over that makes the permission problem worse, and I think it's this. When your life blows up, whether it was a divorce, a death, an empty house, a job loss, or just waking up one day and not recognizing yourself, your confidence takes a hit, even if it wasn't your fault, even if you were the one who left. Because the life you built, the identity you had, the version of yourself that knew what she was doing, she was tied to that situation. And now you're building a new one. And building something new is scary. And when we're scared, we look for someone to tell us we're doing it right. We look for approval. We look for permission. And there's no one there to give it to us. The reason you're stuck isn't because you're weak or broken or not ready. It's because you're looking for a feeling that used to come from outside you. And now it has to come from inside. And you haven't built that muscle yet. That's it. That's the whole problem. And it's solvable. I want to talk about something that nobody tells you when you're starting over. They tell you it gets better. They tell you take one day at a time. They tell you to focus on yourself, which, okay, but what does that actually mean? What does rebuilding an identity look like on a Tuesday morning when you're sitting in a house that's too quiet and you don't know who you are without the context of your old life? Here's what I've learned. Identity doesn't rebuild through thinking. It rebuilds through doing. You don't figure out who you are, then start living. You start living and figure out who you are in the process. The action comes first. The clarity comes after. Every single time. When I first started my training business, I didn't feel like a business owner. I didn't feel confident. I didn't feel like I knew what I was doing. I felt like a woman in her 50s who was terrified and had no choice but to try. But I showed up. I taught the first class, then the second, then 100. And somewhere in the middle of all of that doing, I stopped feeling like I was pretending. I started feeling like this was actually who I was. I've watched this happen with women at my range more times than I can count. A woman comes in shaking. She leaves standing a little taller, comes back the next week, and the week after that. And 6 months later, she's a different person. Not because her circumstances changed, but because she built evidence that she was capable, one class at a time. Here's what rebuilding actually looks like in real, unsexy terms. It looks like doing one uncomfortable thing and the world not falling apart. It looks like making a decision you're not sure about and surviving the outcome, even if the outcome isn't perfect. It looks like calling the friend, asking the question, learning the thing, and realizing that asking for help isn't weakness, it's strategy. It looks like getting curious about yourself again. What do you actually like? Not what did the marriage like, not what did the kids need, and not what did everyone else expect. What do you specifically actually enjoy? A lot of women starting over don't know the answer to that question because they stopped asking it a long time ago. And it looks like letting yourself be a beginner. This one is hard for women who have been competent for decades. We are not used to being new at things. We are used to knowing. But starting over requires you to be new. And being new requires you to give yourself permission to not be good at it yet. The woman you're building doesn't exist yet. You're building her. And she is built one act of self-permission at a time. Real quick, before we get into more of the practical stuff, if this conversation is resonating with you, if you're sitting there thinking, yes, this is exactly what I need, I want you to know there is a place where we go even deeper than this podcast. It's called the Real Talk Vault. It's my private membership community where I work directly with women on exactly this: safety, confidence, rebuilding your life. Inside the vault, you get my full personal safety ebook, exclusive podcast episodes, safety guides, courses, live Q&A sessions with me, and access to our private community of women who are doing this work together. If you're ready to go beyond just listening, if you're ready to actually do the work, come join us. I'll drop the link in the show notes. Going into survivor mode didn't mean I had it figured out. It meant I stopped waiting for someone else to figure it out for me. There's a difference, a big one. Survivor mode meant I called the friend. I asked the dumb question. I learned the thing I didn't know. I made the decision that scared me, and I lived with what happened next. And when that next decision came up, I did it again. Not because I stopped being scared, but because I decided that scared wasn't a good enough reason to stay frozen. And here's what I found. Every single time I made a decision on my own, even a small one, even a wrong one, I built a little bit of evidence. Evidence that I could be trusted with my own life. Evidence that the world didn't end when I chose without asking. Evidence that I was, in fact, capable of figuring things out. The lawnmower wasn't about the lawnmower. It was the first piece of evidence. And that's how this works. You don't wake up one day with confidence, you build it. One decision at a time. One, I did it and nothing fell apart at a time. You are someone who can be trusted with her own life. You've always been that person. You just need to start collecting proof. There's a lot of noise out there about confidence, and most of it is wrong, or at least it's incomplete in a way that keeps women stuck. The messaging we get is think positively, believe in yourself, visualize the outcome you want, repeat affirmations until you feel good enough to start. And I'm not saying those things are useless, but here's what I know from training thousands of women and from rebuilding my own life from scratch in my 50s. Mindset does not come first. Action comes first. Mindset follows. You don't think your way into confidence. You act your way into it. And here's why that matters. If you're waiting to feel confident before you take action, you're going to be waiting forever, because confidence is not a feeling you can generate on demand. It's a result. It's the thing that comes after you do the hard thing and find out you didn't fall apart. I have never met a woman who walked into one of my new women's shooting classes at my range feeling confident about shooting a gun. Not one. They walked in nervous, unsure, sometimes convinced they were going to do it wrong. And they did it anyway. And most of them left feeling something they couldn't quite name at first. What they were feeling was evidence. Evidence that they had done a hard thing. Evidence that they had taken up space for themselves, maybe for the first time in a long time. Evidence that they were capable of more than they thought. That's not a mindset shift. That's a lived experience. And no amount of journaling or visualization gets you there. Only the action does. So if you've been waiting to feel ready, or waiting to feel confident, or waiting until you believe in yourself enough to start, I want you to hear this. You're waiting for the effect before the cause. You're waiting for the harvest before you've planted anything. The confidence you're looking for is on the other side of the action, not before it, after it. Start before you're ready. This is the only way this works. I want to leave you with 3 things, not 10, 3, because overwhelm is just another form of permission seeking in disguise. Number 1, make one decision today without polling anyone. It can be small. What you're having for dinner, whether you take the drive this weekend, whether you call that person back. Make it without asking first. Notice what happens. Notice that the world doesn't end. Notice that you're still standing. Number 2, catch yourself the next time you say, I'm not ready, and ask, ready according to who? What does ready actually look like? Because most of the time you'll find there's no real answer. You just don't want to feel the discomfort of moving. That discomfort is not a stop sign. It's the feeling of growth. And number 3, find your lawnmower. What's the thing you've been standing in front of frozen that you just haven't done yet? Write it down and then call that friend. Ask the question. Learn the thing. It doesn't have to be big. It doesn't have to be perfect. It just has to be yours. One piece of evidence. That's all you're building today. You don't need permission to start over. You need evidence that you can. And you build that evidence by starting. That's the permission problem. And I know some of you heard yourselves in this episode. Maybe it wasn't a lawnmower for you. Maybe it was a leaky faucet, or a tax return, or a conversation you kept putting off, or a dream you kept shrinking down until it was small enough to not count. But you know what it was. You already know. That's why I made this episode. If this hit home, share it with someone who needs it. You probably already know who she is. Before I let you go, I want to tell you about something I've built specifically for women like you. It's called the Real Talk Vault. And if this podcast fires you up, if you listen to these episodes and think, I need more of this, the vault is where you go next. Here's what's waiting for you inside. My complete personal safety ebook, 21 chapters, 97 pages of everything I've learned in 11 years of training 22,000 women. The stuff I wish someone had handed me when I was starting over. Exclusive podcast episodes that go deeper than anything I release publicly. Real talk for members only. Personal safety guides and checklists you can actually use in your home, in your car, in your daily life. Courses built from my years of hands-on instruction. The same knowledge I've been teaching inside my range, now available to you wherever you are. Live Q&A sessions with me directly. You bring your questions, I bring the real talk, no filters. And access to our private community, a group of women who are doing this work together, women who get it, women who are rebuilding, growing, and showing up for themselves every single day, women who will show up for you too. This is not just a membership. It's a community of women who refuse to stay down. The Real Talk Vault is open right now at a founding member rate of $39.99 a month, and I'm only accepting 50 founding members at that price. At the time of this podcast recording, there are 15 spots left. When those spots are gone, they're gone. If you're ready to go beyond just listening, if you are ready to do the work, come join us. The link is in the show notes. I would love to see you inside. Thank you so much for listening today. If this episode fired you up, share it. Send it to a woman in your life who needs to hear it. You never know whose life you might change. Leave a review, hit subscribe, and come find me. I'm Real Talk with Jody on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, and YouTube. Take care of yourself and each other.